Kupalu, when he writes a letter, towards the end of the letter, he begins to give practical instructions.
Amara Kupalu no he o ba autoprangin ma una mete to dot purpona a jolly to he minima sucha ma lisi go hara limida sucha it is rock would pun to pogomana. Then no shall a mera toke, no shall kunma. As another I shook a case you go at the church shook ever.
For instance, he gives practical instructions on the way believers are to behave.
Yeah, the I show them as another pima cribusinago, I'm a pijam and cinema, and a pingin upon another. Baby app new tea, baby do map in neither kiasima muticlotinma, aratamako.
So look at verse 1. Tableau, would you read verse 1 for us?
Thessalonians relataba amadulima akudama perviati de kilana tito be uchopre to na samare ateklo pu tena be itio to hoti ho ro kunya ye ti uchopre nama amaho kunya ye pe kuite zoti ro pe sakuniti kede yase yishu aki ale na tiku mepehia
So here Kupalu is saying that the believers there should grow and become more and more obedient, more and more like Yeshua.
Abar purma ma Kupalu ma ahina ma kiera ji chomrangosi te hina go he esinama asanada abe mirare asan huda panana no esinama athwasa rena yishu tiki polla thoba esima biji chomre ma biji chopot ki lapo.
He says more and more we should be pleasing God.
Midema ona tiki thelapot ki go he na ma pe milo lopli ma pe midema yishu mui go sana pe mimuma yishu chom abisplova.
The whole idea is to be pleasing God, not ourselves.
Midema te lolop sana ma pe milolop lin ma sana pe be mu chom resiplo ko sana pe me te jun ma ma pe ngi ma to go.
But Kupalu expects them to grow more and more like Yeshua.
Ameno ha sana Kupalu no ma sana metashu asi meshu ma hu de ma ji chomre ngosi te hina ma atwa amisa ame to amana atwa senanda yishu ki pogo.
Years ago, we used to think about new believers coming into the church, and imagine a young man with strange-looking clothes and very long hair.
Nindara kesi tanana sonara ma da ite ma like we as in you guys like
we as in American believers.
Oh, mada kula kesi ne go he a esia ora sro ku ne ma po methashi ga si po methashi mada esi ora sro ku ne ma ki esi da kripus ne ma he da esi sro ku pa methajo no go as the at ne methashi jo no ko mana ba esi na tene ba na mana tene sa me go ba he ki he ba esi sro ku ne he Makia pay the prima, Kulo two about her jacinema, Kuse re.
Some Christians would say, he doesn't look like a believer.
Nitty Nema, I met her Kusiki Yono Cinema, or at the prima, Sena the Kripumato, Sena Kiaji, Jumran Langomato.
But as that person began to follow Yeshua, he would begin to look and act more like a believer.
Another market the prima, but a G it what to rango, a meji in about a G shop tiki nema, another engine amount, tiki nema. I send a nina, you shoot pass and I could just say, basis, I said another macripu alumni kalimbo.
So we want to be patient with especially new believers because we need to give them time to grow.
Menoha, another ite cruising in ema. The key had to play a magic jumbo cinema, and baby poor method should never be the baby poor as another Esinoa, a G chocolate and Nipa, the bar, as an baby Michalo, some baby poor.
I'm going to jump down to verse 3. Tableau, would you read verse 3 for us?
Samaria te zuna te kacho unya ti te higu mobility blora be jetuni premo prekutaki.
Here, Kupalu is talking about when we become believers, we have been set aside out of the world. We have been set aside for God to use. We are for Him to use.
But for ma kupa lo no ga hina ba ma kia si te he si aji jomra ngo hina ma thoe kripu si ne ma ban na kena ma asana da ite esi ne ma au pa te pa na da kia si da he kupu si ma go he esi ne ma au ko de pwe ko ma da ma esi ya dan ni na da chom ne ma asi noi te ma mini ngo ga.
And there's one area of sin that he points to, and that is the area of sexual behavior.
Thoba pho no ma a he ma sana hu da ma a hi cho ma ti su ko ko he ai so no ma hina da ma o te pro mon pro ko re kya no ko ko.
This is a big problem in the world. And so Kupalu says we need to put it away from our behavior, improper sexual behavior.
Ma he ma pro ko mon ma he me de ma o te no pro mo ko ai cho no ma.
Rosi be just ni premo prekutaki to.
Ja su ni.
Sao trong một tờ lên đi tụi nó bảo.
Thôi mà kupa lu ma he go ma me te page ke tho chom rango ne he asena hu da ti su si abe share ke hu da o su mo kusin ne ma be mi to pe be ke hu ko.
I think that I would be correct when I said this is a bigger problem for men.
Ma sra ten ne ma ato ke he ma da ite ma at ko te su ro ko ma ite adula ti su adula ma da prekumi ke si go.
And this is because men are so quickly they're so quickly and easily influenced by things that they see.
Me te sra he me na te ma sena da ma prekusin ma da ti su ro ko ngi na ma prekusin ma pe na ma dula he me te ma asena da prekusin ngi ma asena da amet to ju ne ma ai lo ilya le hu glo go ilo ilya le go a lo ile le me to sin.
That's why we always want believing women to dress modestly.
Me no asena na pesi me to shu ma da me te prekusin na asingin ma yen ne ni asena da arel ma da ma te promo ma hu da kina ji chom rango sin ne ma esi kse ha cha ma hu da are to are hu glo sin go.
But the world, oh my, the world, the things out there in the world, the way women, the way they dress, and the behavior, it's a terrible temptation for men.
Mina hasena da ki esi da ro si da he ku fu sin go esi kun ne si me thane ma sin me ma sena da promotion ma ku sa ha cha sen si a en ne si ne sen ma sena da a re to chon go.
There is we're not sure of the writers of the book of Hebrew, but it says in the book of Hebrew, in chapter 13 and verse 4, it says that whatever happens in the bed of man and wife is okay.
Mana da Hebrew gunu go he ma Hebrew ni sa Hebrew no ma a he ma ite mo pe ra pe ma sin do he ma na sa na hu da Thessalonians ma mo pe ra pe mo pe sin yo he ma khu pa lo ra li he na da ite Hebrew ma mo pe ra pe mo pe sin yo to ma na he na da ma du no sa to ma pu no ba le no ma he na da ma pe mo na pro khu au mo to lu ma na kina me na ve nu ne ma ani we ko.
And then in verse 6, look at verse 6. Tableau, would you read verse 6?
In Hebrew?
Oh no,
No?
I'm sorry. In First Thessalonica.
Oh, okay.
First Thessalonica.
Tito be metani ti pavia kri putihi na te pun tihi te preto tito be tapia lia ho ini ni de ti pavia kri putihi aku te preto kaya de ame pun tihi ne ya se ku jiria etipa hu yetihi ne pe hi sudunya le pe to lo ho ti pe de ro de re to lo ho ti ho
when a believer does not when a believer or when a person is involved in improper sexual behavior, it hurts people.
Mà mình hỏi đó pressure tôi mình đó kia xí đó rồi xí bất tế biểu có hè xí mà kia này xí ở bắt từ mà hú đó hình thì mà umur xí class nó class này mà bị chết từ xí mình đó có bị chết bạc đó kia xí đó rồi xí có.
If a person acts improperly toward someone who is married, that is going to hurt people.
Mình mà sana đó ite kia kia tập nó ha hay mi ruri si mi cha si mà đó hay ibeshu kia phải mua phải me về pus yêu này mà sana đó bên nào kia này mà sana beshu check kia si đó rồi si thì có.
That's easy to understand.
Bên nào mà sana ayung nhà mà có đó belu singin.
But if a person, let's say a man, if a man acts improperly toward an unmarried girl, then that is hurting people also.
Na sa lo sana kia này mà cool pre nó ha hay bị promo mà đó dia promo mà sana violet to cool le to lo sin ko bên nào kia mà ambitious check kia si đó mà SEO open thì có.
Because that is hurting the girl. How was I going to say that? It can hurt the girl if she becomes impure.
Mà ite hay bị sinh ở tụi con hay mà đó phải mà hay mi toàn mi rất tụ đó phải muốn bị sinh nó nên mà sana abe ite promote abe kabe ashe mi de mà sana đó bên kia mà đó phải muốn nghe mà toàn rất tụ.
And this hurts the future husband of that girl.
Tụi ba mi shepo mà đó mà kabe tụ chắc đó mà phải mua ite aviation nó ba đó hay nhiều bao.
Because believers, when they marry, those believers want a pure spouse.
Mình te asana đó biết nào mình te mà asana đó mình te đó bị cripple nhiều mà bị pressure thì mà asana hu đó bị xếp bị khu tông đó bị xếp bị mồm hu đó tỏa rêu nó có gì nữa có hay.
In verse 11, Tabler, would you read verse 11 for us?
ya tu utu pre krele pe dio la ya na ude te pro te tu akuni ne te ri te kya ma to te hine je ne me sus ha ke te u te me ni pu pe hi su thu ho ti na pu e pu ria ro be bo e la ya ni du bơ e la ni de de la ya ti ne ni.
So Paul says that Kupalu says that that the world should see us believers as being hardworking and not troublemakers.
Mà khu palu mà hiện nay bên nghe mà bên mi rep bên này, hú sẽ nó hú đó kia xí đó rồi xem mấy thợ bên này mà tụi này bên nó bên mà kia mà hú đó, ite amisu sa kia đó rồi tổ thôi mà pe sin ma pe mi te mi sho si te priu no ko
If we do not behave well towards, if the world does not see us behaving well, then it does not make the gospel look good either.
me de ma kena ki ya sida ro si me tha pe ba asinge asana te ne pe ma ki ya ma hu de asu sa si nglo se ne ma mo ne kena ma te ami pya lo ke hu de ami mu me ke ma te chom re la ngo si nglo no ko
Years ago, when I was in my 20s, maybe 25,
ni da ra ke ma sra upa te na na sho to ne na shangi
I got a job working at an apartment complex where there were a lot of apartments.
ba na ken ma sra na ma ami te me ma de ite hi ku ma sen hi ma hi te hi mo to hi ma de asana da ma hotel ka si no asana hi au chi lu da hi du ku ko
They loved my work, and when I said I had to leave, when I had to move, they were very unhappy.
ba sra mi te mi ba na ken ma ke si lo lo pli na ma ami mu ne sra ko sana hu de sra mi te mi ma re he me no ha mana ba sra no ha abi pya ja ken ko ba na ken ma esi au ba hi bu si na ma sana asi pro pya ja ko
But before I left, the woman that hired me, she said, "I want to talk to you a minute."
mana da ma sra ite apya cha le to ken ma sra ite sana ma ne ja na ma ite e he sra ma ano under lu mat mi na ko sana si be shulu
She said, "When I went to hire you, I knew you were a Christian, and because of that, I didn't want to hire you."
ma promoter ma hilu na order ke lu ke ma ve method ne da ba si e he minute mi no ha ve si nge ma ne ma de ni ji chom ran ngo ba na mi na mi te ve si ni no ha ve si e he ja ne te mi tu
She said, "Because I had a very bad experience hiring a Christian girl."
me de ma sana ide ma ve ngi na ma ve khabina to ma da ke ve ide da te mi ma da ma ite promoter prima e ma thwa khri bu gal ma ve khabe ite so pa so re
She said, "One day, when this girl was working, all of a sudden, she was gone, and nobody could find out where she went."
ba ma promoter prima a mi te me ke na ta na ke na io mi ke jo ga ma ke si me pu lu ma me pu ne ne lu ma me thalu to
This was in the middle of the day. All of a sudden, where is she?
ma ba a cho mi na ma da sa mo tho ne cho pa na ko ha sa na io mi ke na
And they thought maybe something bad had happened. They were looking all over the apartment complex. Did somebody hurt her? They didn't know where she was.
ma ite ke si lo pli na ma sa na su sa ne lu su plo me ma si si ge na ma promoter prima ma ke mi shelu e to ne ite au mi ke na ma sa na pe na to ji ji hung klo ni a me pu lo cha hi du ja ma me thalu to
She said, "We finally found out that she had just gone home."
mana no shola no ha si no ha singi na ma promoter ma ia ka ke dai hi
And when we talked to her, and when we asked her, "Why did you just go home in the middle of the day and you didn't tell anybody?"
wa si na shu de lo ga ma me te de ma tho ba ba ne he ma ia ka ke dai hi do ba ma na ka ke no ngai sho ke to pre to ai sa na ai sho ke te sa na me te ka ke te ne mai sho i sho ke pre to ga
And the girl said, "God told me to go home."
no mo na wa na o ma chom ran no ka ma hi
God does not tell people to do silly things.
an chom ran ma ano mi de me ke ma hu de ite a mi hu de silly ma de
Looking for the word silly?
Yeah.
What is it?
I have no idea
Oh,
we do me hu de sing ya si sa na me lu la chong no ga kulla kulli sa na me de me ne ma mi re ko sa na de me le vol me kulla kulli so it's in other words like do not just play around
no.
silly yeah
She said, when I first talked to you, Mark, said, I thought maybe all Christians were crazy, but I decided to take a chance on you and hire you.
นี่มามันจังว่าชูลูอาสนาเดบ่วันนี้เวสิงเงมาเนี่ยทอคริปูนบ่นะคินมาอาสนาเดอิเตอัตเนนะคริปูซลอปลีซิมาอัตมีซีสนะมีเลวงกลอซิเมนะก็ไม่นะมันอาซีบ่นะคินอาซีเอเฮสตราตัวมันอาฮิลุนะมาอาซีดักลูเลอาซีดันยีนะฮะอาซีนี่ดิme gusta te hung los ni go yes
The world is always looking for an excuse not to listen to the gospel.
Ke ada hikulo la prima ona esina ha asi asana me mete asi ni da chomrengo tu ne ma sana he ale he bi ken ha in ne ko
So we don't want to give them another excuse. We don't want them to say, all these Christians, they act silly.
meno ha sana pe si da asi to hu klo sin go sana da asi tinina o ma kripu sin ma ami levo we ami temir ta ti le tu hu klo si sana singin no klo ne ma sana ob sin da to ai chon klo ko meno ha pe da ni asi le hi su sa to
They should be able to respect the way we live.
Bra asingin ma asana da method pe ne ma asana ade du ga pe hu klo sana pe o chu pra ngin ma sana asi method ne aw to re ade du
Look at verse, let's see. Look at verse 13. Verse 13. Tableau, would you read verse 13?
Payati petezu notengi kutina kayana azu inya I tero a tetu honotihi ariakya pu kayada atemyasu uku utotihi te pleni bene petezu nochu kutipu notu.
Kupalu understood that the believers in Thessalonica needed to be taught more about what happens when believers die and what will happen in the future.
Meno ha ma kupalo no ha asingi ga ma da ite kiesi ma kripusi oda Thessalonica kun go he da asingi na ma kia be swalu go da cha no pa wa si sa ken ma athe ma ku ari kiasi ma as bisingi to ba de cha no pa ta sku si ne ma atho the crate ne ma asana da asina bisingi go.
So the believers knew that they were waiting for Yeshua to come and take them to be with him.
Ma asi kripusi ma jijo ma ngong si te hin ma asingi go asana tanna kin ma asana asi opot tanna ke sa na da ite issue na heda hikur ba ik the asi da moku.
But what about their family and friends that were believers but have died? What will happen to them?
Ni mana da ma ite ke ma da asi hibu pya pusi ma da aku ba sa si do na hibu pya pusi da asi to kripu ba mana asi sa ga te hin go da asi na ma athe mo ko athe to asi ni na ma abi mi hu te ko ba te.
They wondered, are they going to enjoy all the things that we will enjoy when Yeshua comes?
Ni amena ha asina tani go sana da asi ni na ma da sa to te thi sin ma sa ite issue ke le da ikathe mo ku ne ma asi ni ma athe pa pe sana au stikrisi lo sana mo re ka sana pe da mo ku pa asi ni go.
So now we have to stop and we have to think about this because there are many things to think about.
Kunna na ma sana da ite isra ma be ship ya re pe ko ne ma pe lu pe sin ni ma we lu ka.
When we think about believers who have died, when we talk about them, we many times are thinking about their body that is in the ground.
Ni ba ma pingin ma pe hina da o ma kripu pe sa ke pe ne pe hine ma ona pe ne ma da ma ani klo au da ma hilin hino ko.
But we also have to remember that that's only the body. They are really in heaven with Yeshua.
มันนี่เนี่ยมาเป็นเบสิงี้ก็ให้มาเด้ออันนี้กลัวพายาซีนมาเอาเด้อเฮเลนมาเด้อมาเอซีนี่เนี่ยมันก็ให้มาเอซีนมาเอาอุทกดือเด้อมคุก็
In verse 14, I'm going to read verse 14.
เป็นสื่อเอนาเยซูติทุรออาโชพริกาคีฮอผู้เนรอเป็นสื่อเอนาชีเยซูเฮียเลียคิดยาปานเนสมรกุอีกาอุตเกคิดยากยาเดอาสื่อเยซูรออติทุฮอนุติหินาลุปา
Okay, here, let's talk about we talk about Yeshua coming in two ways, and we'll talk about those right now.
บ่เอาผลไม้ชูไปก็สนะชาหนูประมาชาหนูตันเนยชูเฮนมาอีเดอะเฮสนะเอาเนื้อจืดก็สนะเอาน้ำอยู่ก็ไปชูไปที่คุณเนี่ย
We are waiting for Yeshua to come down out of heaven into the clouds and to call us to be with him.
เอาเราจะเจอมาสนะเดอยิชูอะเฮนมาไอเตยิชูมาเฮลปอเปเดอมาเอาลูกคุณก็เฮเบอร์นักกินมาสนะเดออีเดยิชูบ่เอาลูกคุณเนี่ยมาอีกเทปิคริปุนว่าให้เมทัชชูลูเดอมาเอาลูกคุณ
When he calls us to be with him, like that, then he will take us back to heaven with him.
บ่มาอีกเทตัวไปเดอเอาลูกคุณมาตัวเปรีก็เฮlike 1 second บ่ไปกเทตัวเนี่ยมายิชูเนาะอีกเทตัวไปก็จะไปเดอมาฮิมาคุบ่ก็
And then terrible things will be happening on earth. Terrible judgments.
บ่มาไปเทตัวบ่คุณเนี่ยมาเดอเฮคูแล้วเราปลีเกียวปาเดอเฮคูซินมาอันเซนาเดอเอซิจิเรียมาจมเรจิเรียแล้วเราปลีสิก็เซนาเดออิติโซฟาโซเรซิแล้วเราปลีมาทอเทลโลบ่ก็
When the judgments are done in about 7 years, then Yeshua will come back to earth and we will be with him too. We will come down back with him.
บ่มาโซซานาตนากุนก็เห็นบ่จมเรจิรามาเฮคูแล้วเราปลีมาบ่ทัวเนี่ยมาอิเตยิชูเนาะอักเลกเซเดอเฮคูก็คุณเนี่ยมาเกเลเดอเฮคูบ่เฮบ่นักกินมาอักเลเดอเฮคูเนาะมาเปซิเนี่ยมาไปเฮปัตเตอร์กันนะยิชู
Yeshua will come as the head of an army riding a white horse, and we will be part of the army behind him.
นี่บ่ยิชูเฮตัวเดอเฮคูเนาะมาเฮตัวเซนังอุดมาเตอิเตคลาวซีซาดูแล้วอันเดดูแล้วตะเพรนก็เฮเดมาสนะเอาเนเรอิเตซีโนโตดิซีคู
We do not have to fight. We just watch Yeshua do it.
บ่บ่นำมาสนะเดมาเป็นเบชาชื่อนะเดเฮคูฟูไอ้เนาะมานั่นนี่เนนะมายิชูนะมามีลอกแล้วดูบ่ก็มาเป็นทอมาเดยิชูมากลอฟูซีนกลอเฮมานะเปโอแม่เดยิชูมีแล้วลอปีเนาะ
But these believers in Thessalonica, they thought the believers that are dead, what will happen to them?
มันเดมาพรีจีมันเดเทสโลนิกาดอคูซินมาอาซิงเยตก็เฮเดมาอิเตเดคริปูซิมาสกะทอนซีเตหินมาอาซิงเยนมาทอเทมิปอเต
So Kupulu says that when Yeshua comes back to earth, those that have been dead, they will be part of that group along with us.
บ่คูปาลุนก็เฮนะชามาอิเตเดมายิชูเกเลกเซเดฮิคุนก็เฮบันนะคินมาเปมาเปคริปูซินมาเปตุนะยิชูปะทอบัมบะอิเตคริปูซิมาซะทอเตฮิลอลอปลิซินมาเอาปะเตกะเปเดอิเตกลาวกุเพกุนปะ
And then he explains how these believers that are dead, what happens that how are they able to come back with Yeshua when he comes to earth? How does this happen?
นี่บันกินมาอาศิสิงเยก็มาเดอิเตคริปุซิมาซาโทสิเดหินมาฉันโนมากะแค่ปัตเตกเสนาเยซูนมาสนามิวติกโลเตมิเจอติกโลเตอาศิสิงเยก็
And this is what we will have to talk about next week.
มาเดเปโลอิซาตะโกนมาเดอิสราอิโชเปชันโนมาตะปากะ